Hello everyone and welcome to Meet Me at the Table. This is Colin and today we are going to do a playthrough of Defenders of the Wild. This is a really interesting game. I had zero expectations for it. I got it. Look at how small it is. I pulled it out, played it with my wife, and we really enjoyed it. So I'm really excited to show this to you. I am going to be playing as if I'm playing with 3 players. There is a solo mode in here. I tried it once. I didn't love it. So I'm playing just with 3 of the different factions. It'll show you more of the game anyways, so that's how we're going to play. Now, this is a relatively new game, so if I miss anything in my editing and you notice something, let me know and give me a timestamp. I'll put them up in Klingon subtitles, so make sure to turn on those Klingon subtitles so you can see that. All right, in this game, we're trying to take down machines. We need to put out all of our camps and rewild any of their factories that these machines put out, and they're pooping out pollution everywhere. If we rewild all of them that they've placed out and have built all of our camps, we win. That's likely not going to happen. There's a few ways we can lose. We'll talk about that as we play. Let's jump into setup and start our playthrough. The first part of setup is setting up your board, and this looks so cool. There's 4 different terrain types in the game. I will randomly shuffle these up, and then we place these out onto the board. It is important to note that each of the tiles have a little arrow pointing down. You want to make sure that they all have that same orientation. They are double-sided, so if ever you need to flip it over to make sure that you can have the arrow pointing the same way, so I'm going to have all my arrows pointing straight down, I can do that. Once you have randomly placed out your tiles, you'll notice that there's a center space that's empty. That's where the machine is going to start placing out all of their different pieces. They have engines, they have mechs, they have walls, they have pollution, all that gross stuff. It's all going to start here. So we place this token here. Then we're going to grab all 6, 0 through 5 of their factories. There are a total of 6 factories, all numbered 5 to 0. You need to place the 0 first on the board and then place 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all on them in random orientations. I need to always have them in that order because 5 needs to be placed out before 4. When we start having them show up on the board, that happens when the machine uses these engines. They build enough walls around a hex, and then their directive is to build a factory. You'll see how that works as we play. So I'm going to have each of these turned in random orientations, placing them one on top of the other and in the center of the board. Once we have set up what's called the machine core that has all the factories that they want to build, we now need to set up our engines and walls. So we need to place one wall on the hex edge that the machine core's factory direction arrow points towards. We can see this arrow is pointing here, so we'll place one between these 2 hexes. Then we need to place another wall to the right of that one. So if we were facing this way, to the right is right here. We then need to place this engine facing away from this factory core or machine core. We're going to place it here. And what it's trying to do is build around this hex or any hex with walls. What's really interesting about this game is we can never stop these engines. We're animals. We're not going to be able to stop the engines. We're trying to reduce the pollution and trying to rewild any of the factories that come out. Now, we're not done. That's just this side. We need to do the same thing on the opposite side, and it needs to mirror exactly. So that means we need to place 1, 2, and place the other engine this way. Okay, so we'll have one on either side. Next, we need to place out some starting pollution. On certain tiles, there's these little tiny circles here. That means they start with 1 pollution. So we'll place 1 pollution on each of those. There are 3 or 4 tiles that need that. We can see we have pollution up here, down here, over here, and in this area. Next, let's set up our mechs. There are 2 types of mechs. There are sniper mechs, which are actually placed in factories, and we always have 2 sniper mechs inside of the machine core. During the game, once one of these factories are made, we're going to take this off and then put 2 more on there. We also have hunter mechs. They start on the actual land itself, and they're going to hunt us as characters and try and deal us damage. So we need to place one out in each of the edge spaces. You can kind of see that on the actual edging of the board itself where they start. There are a total of 6 mechs that start on the board here and 2 at the machine core. For the machines, we have a direction circle, which is right here, and a toxic site circle. Oh, okay, this direction circle helps us whenever we're trying to determine which way will the engines move, or sometimes they're used for tiebreakers or whatnot. You always look at that engine and you see, okay, this side is the 1 gear side and this side is the 2 gear. Okay, so, and then during the game, sometimes this will switch, but this helps us with knowing which way these engines want to move. These toxic sites, if ever 3 pollution or more is placed in one of these individual tiles, we remove it and place the toxic pollution. We take a damage when we remove that, and this is one of the end game conditions. We'll talk about that right before we start playing. These machines are always controlled by a set of 7 cards. We have 2 engine cards, 2 mech cards, 2 factory cards, and a reboot card. That is the standard setup. You can choose how difficult you want your game by adding in difficult cards. Now, I've only won once and lost 4 times, but I like using 1 difficulty card, so I'm going to grab this one. All right, this is going to make the mechs a little bit more difficult, but it's only one of the cards. That isn't added. Instead, we'll remove one of the regular ones, and then we'll use that one instead. We'll shuffle those 7 cards up, and after the end of each player's turn, we will draw one of these and resolve them. The game comes with a total of 4 factions. We are going to play as the Sect, and then I'm also going to play with the Order and the Council. We're not playing with the Coven this time. Each faction has 2 different organizers, and those organizers will set up your deck, your action deck, slightly differently. So for us, we have Uzrai over here, or Guzper the Hacker. I decided to choose Orzai. He is a miner, so that means his deck of cards, you always start with the 6 cards that have no letters in this corner here. You always have those in as long as I'm playing this specific faction, the Sect. But then, because I chose the one with this U, I then grab these 6 U cards and place them on top. And they have different abilities than Guzper's cards that are the G ones. And so these 6 are set aside, as well as his cute little animal meeple, and we won't use them for this scenario. So I'll shuffle this up, and this becomes our action deck. Over here, we have our faction board. It's actually dual-sided, so if you're playing with 4 players, you'll want to use this side. 2 and 3 players, you use this side. Because I'm playing with 3 different factions, we need to grab houses and fill these spots up to the 3 spot, okay? These are one of the game end ways that you win the game, is you have to get all of your camps out. We have 1 camp that we'll start with, and we'll place that out on the board. We have to make sure that 3 is visible. Because we're not playing with 2 players, we don't have to go all the way to here. We have a pawn, and we're going to place that pawn in this spot. And as we earn support, we'll push this up, and then we can build a camp. This will then go down. This tells us our new hand size. We go up, and we keep doing that, and that's one of our goals in the game, is to get all of our camps out. Now, you're also going to see up here, I have items. Now, I only have items for the factions that we're playing with, because each faction is good or creates a specific type of item. Ours, we create rockets. Yeah, rockets can blow things up like the mechs, or even create breaches in walls. So we are playing with characters that bring in the rockets. We have bread from the council, and we have maps from the order. We will have no potions in this playthrough. If all 4 were out, we actually have a potential of gaining all 4 of the items. So each of the factions will have these 3 tokens, and they all start inactive. If we gain one, we flip it over, and it's a free action to use them. We can have up to 3 wounds before we actually take a damage, and you'll see how that works when we play, but we can place our damage here. If we take a 4th damage, we then remove all of this, and we lose a defender in our hand, and that's one of the ways we can lose the game. Because we are the main player, I'm going to start us as the first player. Also, there are these breach tokens. We use those breach tokens to breach walls so we can move through them. I think this is interesting. The game only comes with 12 of them, so you have to separate them out evenly between the characters, so we can only ever breach 4 walls. Even if we're good at doing it, I can't use someone else's breach tokens, so I have my own set of 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shuffle all of these cards up, and at the start of the game, I get to draw 3 of them. Each card will have a certain amount of action points we'll gain when we play that card, as well as an ability. This one has a reveal. All players gain rockets. So we might only get 2 actions, but everyone gets rockets. This one gives us 3 actions, and it has a reveal, relocate to any mountain hex. And this one has 4 actions. It says reveal, the first player marker passes to the left. So if we play this, we actually won't be the first player, which is fine, but sometimes that could be a problem, so we might not want to play that one. So that's our starting hand. Now what's interesting about this game, we do not draw cards again until we increase our support to here and then build a camp, and then we get to draw up to 4 cards. So if ever we have no cards in our hand, it's not like we don't get to do anything. We just play the top card of our deck, and whatever it is, we deal with. So part of this game is managing when you want to put out your camps so that you can get a replenished set of cards in your hand. Our second faction we're playing with is the Order. I chose Borun over here as our leader. We will shuffle their cards up, and I'm going to draw their 3 cards in secret. You won't get to see them because normally when you play this, you have to choose which cards you play in silence. You don't get to strategize. Then we all reveal, and then we can talk strategy. So I'm not going to let you see the cards that they have in their hand, and then when we reveal them, you'll still see how they play out. I should mention the Order is all about maps, and maps let us move more easily on the board, which is very helpful. Our final faction is the Council. The Council is all about bread. Bread gives you extra actions. You can flip this over to get a +1 action for free. We could choose between Nexter, the Commander Chef, or the Guard Veteran, and I decided to go with the Guard Veteran because he's an owl. So we'll shuffle up and draw 3 of his cards as well. Unfortunately, in this game, we're animals fighting machines. Death is potentially going to happen to some of our defenders. If they do die, we place them underneath these tokens. So we have 4 here, 1 for each of the region types. If ever we have to place a second defender of the same region type over here, we lose the game. Speaking of regions, there are 4 regions on the board. Each of us have our home regions that we're slightly better in. We are all about the mountains. So these are our regions, and that's the only locations we can build our camps in. We actually get to start the game with 1 camp out on the board in one of the edge spaces that has our terrain type. So I'm thinking of placing our first camp here, and we'll start right on the edge. Normally you have these stand up, but I'll lay them down just because I'm shooting overhead so you can see them. We're going to have the Order start way over here. This will be where they place their first camp. And the Council loves the plains. So we got the plains over here, and I'm also going to have our Order start, or I should say the Council start up here. So this is where we have our initial camps set up. Having those camps is super helpful because you can heal there, you can get free items there. We'll talk all about that as we play. At this point, I do think it's important to talk about how we win and lose the game. So we win the game in one way. All factories that are built, so any of these that are placed out on the board, not in this machine core, but it's placed out on the board because these engines have filled an entire location with walls and then placed a factory there. All of those have to be rewilded, which you'll see what that means as we play. But that's our first thing we need to do, and each player must build all of their camps. That's how we win. We can lose in a few different ways. If all 5 of these factories have been built and we need to place the 6th one out, we lose. If all of those 6 toxic sites are placed out on the board, or toxic pollution is placed out on the board and we need to place another, we lose. Finally, if 2 defenders from the same habitat, so if we lose 2 defenders from the mountains or 2 defenders from the plains, then we immediately lose. Oh, I forgot to mention, the terrain type we didn't talk about are the marshes. The marshes are used for the Coven. We, of course, can still use it. We're just not as efficient moving through it. Speaking of actions, these are the different actions we can take during the game. I'll explain all of them as we do them, but I just want you to see the action options. All of our different factions have the same actions. There's no unique actions for factions. There's just the unique items. So we can move. That lets us move around the map. We can build a camp. That's what we need to do to be able to draw more cards, and that's one of the main parts of the game. We can heal because we can take damage. We can regroup, which just means we take an action and move ourselves right back to our camp. We can clear pollution. It actually just takes 1 action to clear all cubes. Or cubes, I'm thinking pandemic. That's all I can think of with the pollution is pandemic. we can clear all pollution on that space, even if it has toxic pollution, but that toxic pollution causes us to take a damage. We can destroy a mech in our space. We can breach a wall as long as a wall is on one of the adjacent sides of our space. And we can rewild a factory so long as there's nothing else there. However, whenever we're doing actions and there are mechs either in our location or snipers adjacent to us, they can attack us, and you'll see how that works. We can also team up, and I'll explain that as we play. I do want to show you, these are the 4 different items we can find. We have bread, which gives us actions, rockets, which lets us for free breach a wall or destroy a mech, and we have maps, which lets us either move or regroup for free as a free action. We're not playing with the potions. That would let us remove damage or clear pollution. One of the ways we gain items is ending a move action, not a regroup, but a move action at a camp. So long as we go to that camp, and it can be whichever camp it is, that's the type of item we'd collect. So even if one of the Order defenders ends their movement at the Council's camp, they would then gain 1 bread. Kind of cool, and I really do like how each of the factions bring in a unique item. With all of that out of the way, I think the best thing to do is just start. So the rounds are very simple. We start with an organize phase, followed by an action phase. So in the organize phase, we're all not supposed to talk. We choose 1 card that's in our hand, or if we have no cards in our hand, we just take the top card of our deck and we place it face down on our discard pile. Then, after we've all chosen our card, we'll flip them over, and then we resolve any reveal effects. After that, then whoever has the first player token takes their actions and then draws a machine card, and then the next player does that and draws a machine card, and we just keep going until everyone's taken their actions, and then we just rinse and repeat. It's very simple. So what I'm going to be doing with you on screen is choosing 1 of the cards for our group, the sect, and then the other 2 I'll choose off camera. We'll then reveal them all and then resolve them. So what I'm thinking, as much as I love having 4 actions, we're all in locations with mechs. So getting some rockets, the nice part about rockets is that they don't cause a damage roll, and you'll see how important that is as we play. So although we only gain 2 actions, I feel like this is a solid choice for our first one, especially because we are the first player. So hopefully the other 2 players will not choose something that causes them to be first player. That's actually even okay, because this is a reveal effect. So even if someone else goes first, everyone gains rockets. We've each chosen a card. Let's flip them over. Let's see if anyone else has a reveal. Oh, nice. So we have 2 that have reveal effects. This one says all players gain rockets. That means all players get to flip over their rocket item, and they can use those during their turn for free, and that can get rid of a mech or breach a wall. Not a ton of walls to breach yet, but there soon will be. Our friends, the counselors, also gave everyone maps. Wow. Way to start. So we all have maps and rockets. That's 2 free actions. And then Azine over here gives fortitude specifically for the Order. And that is whenever they roll the die, they get to ignore the 2 hit damage on the die, which is really great. So because no one changed the first player, we get to go first, followed by the Council, followed by the Order. I'm realizing these 2 are in the wrong order. There we go. So it will be us, followed by the Council, followed by the Order. So we have 2 actions that we can use. We currently have a mech in our space. What I'd love to do is get rid of it. Now, whenever you do an action and you start that action in a space with a mech, you have to roll this damage die. Now, this damage die can deal you 1 damage. It can deal you 1 damage. It can deal you 2 damage, or it can deal you 0. Whenever you're getting attacked by a mech in your space, all of these hits count. However, there are mechs that are sitting in factories and they can snipe you. Whenever you do actions adjacent to a factory, those mechs will attack you, but they can only deal you 1 damage at most. So if I roll this, they miss, and if I roll this, they deal me 1 damage, and if I roll this, they miss. So what I'm thinking of doing is using my rockets. Now, normally, we'd have to roll for damage after doing this, but because this is an item, we can see here it says rockets destroy a mech or breach a wall, no damage roll. That means we can take out this mech in our space and no damage that we need to be worried about. It's very important that we generate support during the game because that is the only way we can build more camps, and that's ultimately one of our goals. The 4 ways we can generate support is clearing pollution, destroying a mech, breaching a wall, or rewilding a factory. Well, we did just destroy a mech, so we can move up our support by 1. We need 2 more support before we can place out a camp. What's also great about using an item, that's a free action, so we still have 2 actions remaining. Our first action, I think I'm just going to clear all the pollution in our space. When we do that, we generate more support. We only need 1 more support before we can do the camp action. Before I take my second action, I do think I'm going to use that map. That is going to allow us to move. Now, whenever you move, you want to look at your defender, because your defender is going to tell you what type of habitats you can move well through. We can move really well with Riz here through the forest. That's different than our overall faction, which is the mountains, but we didn't lead or play a mountainous character. We played a character that's better in the forests. Generally speaking, when you move, you can only move 1 hex at a time, so this would cost me 2 movement. But whenever you do this move action, you can look at what type of habitat your defender is from. Well, my defender, I should say, is from the forest habitat. So with that 1 movement, this whole area is considered 1 space. So I can move 1 and go all the way to here for that 1 movement. Or I could move all the way over to here. That's what I'm thinking of doing. Conversely, I could just move 1 and move 1 in the mountains. Okay, but what I'm thinking of doing is moving right over here. The habitat movement is super cool in this game. Then I will, for my second action, move right over here. My plan is, for our next turn, we can clear this pollution. We will get sniped by these machines, maybe take a damage, but we'll deal with it. And then we can build our second camp here because we'll have enough support. We've now used our 2 actions. We can now choose if we'd like to team up. How we team up, we can take a card from our hand that matches the same habitat as our defender. Well, neither of these do, so we can't do that. But let's say they did. We could slide one of these underneath that defender and give ourselves +1 action. And we can do that as many times as we have defenders in our hand that match that same habitat. But it only gives you 1 action, and your cards are a very limited resource, so be careful doing that. But sometimes that 1 extra action is just what you need. Okay, that will complete our turn. Let's now draw one of the machine cards. We'll flip over this first card and we have mechs. Okay, this states each engine deploys 1 hunter, and then hunters pursue. Active player, which is me, they will move 2 habitat hexes towards or into our space if they can. If they can't move into our space, though, they won't move. And then they look for other characters. If they can move into them within 1 space, they will. The front of the engines are right here, so they each will shoot out 1 mech. Oh, this is annoying. Then we look at all the mechs, and there are 2 mechs here that are within range 2. They're each going to move into our space. Now, this one is not within 2. That one's not, so they don't move. Now, are any of them within range 1 of any of our other players? They're not, so they're also not going to move. But right now, I am surrounded by mechs. I've got 2 in my space. Those are hunters. And I've got 2 snipers ready to shoot me. Now it's our counselor's turn. They have 2 total actions. The defender they've played, Whipsy here, has the plains as her habitat. That's great. She's going to do her first action. She's going to move. So she's going to move all the way into here because remember, this is all considered 1 space because that's a habitat corridor. So she moves into here. She doesn't have to roll for any damage because she hasn't taken an action in the space with these mechs. But now she's going to help me out. First thing she's going to do is use a rocket. Flip that over. She can remove a mech, and that does not cause a damage roll. Beautiful. Then she's going to take her second action. Oh, and that will increase her support by 1. Her second action, she is also going to remove this mech, but now we do have to roll for damage. And since there was one in her space, she has to roll and the melee damage will count. We only have to do 1 roll though, even though there's multiple enemies or machines that can attack her. It's only 1 roll. It just means right now the 2 damagers can hit her as well as the singles. This action will also generate her another support, so she's 1 away from being able to build a camp. We'll roll up that die and she has 1 damage. That's not too shabby. We'll take that 1 damage. Now she could, if she wanted, try to team up, but she's not going to. She's going to end her turn. Her machine card will be, let's see, factories. If any habitat hexes are enclosed, there aren't any that are enclosed that have to be fully enclosed by walls. I will tell you that factories are walls. So think of the factories as having 6 walls around them, but still nothing has any walls fully surrounding it. Instead, we'll just have factories spread pollution. You start with the highest numbered factory. We only have one right now. It's going to spit out one here, and one here. None of those become toxic yet, but in our space, if we get one more, or in this marsh space, one more, they become toxic. Finally, the order gets to go. Azine has 3 total actions, and he can ignore the 2 damage if he rolls it in melee. So the first action he's going to do to generate support. Oh, actually, he's not going to use an action. Let's just have him use the rockets. Who doesn't love rockets? It's free. No worries about damage. This mech is gone. He'll then use 1 move to move through his corridor and move to here in this same location as a mech. His second action will be to take out this mech. That will give him a second support as well, but now he has to roll for damage. Rolling up our die. 1. I was hoping it was a 2 because he could ignore that. Before using his third action, he's going to use his map. His map allows him to move 1 space. Well, he'll move 1 and slide himself right into where his camp is and refresh his item. So that way he can use this again and he can move for free and then end here for 1 movement right where that mech is. That means we still have 1 more action. He's going to attack that mech and remove it. This also gives him his third support. He takes 1 damage, so he has 2 damage now. I was really hoping for that 2 damage one to show up. He may or may not have a potential of teaming up, but he decides not to, so he will draw his machine card. We have engines. Engines advance twice, and then if any of them get reset, we have to deploy the reset engines. Each engine is going to move towards the 1 gear symbol, so on this one, that's on this side, so it's actually going to move 1, 2. It's going to create 2 walls in these 2 spots. The nice thing is that's not finishing off this hex, but it is blocking off more space. I do want to call out, even though these engines will block our movement, they are not considered walls. So for an example, 1, 2, with this one moving this way, we're going to place out 2 more walls. This hex is still not completely surrounded by walls. We have 1 space that isn't, right where this engine is. The next time that engine moves, either way that it moves, it's going to finish off, and this is going to be where the next factory is going to be placed. We've completed our first round. We'll start the next round. We'll start by choosing one of the 2 cards in our hands to play. I kind of like the idea of having 4 actions. I know it means that we will not go first anymore, but I'm okay with that. So I think I'm going to grab Slover here and place that face down on my discard pile. We've each chosen our cards. Let's flip them over. We have a reveal, gain maps for Pophill. So the order will gain a map back. That's their only item that they have. We have the reveal, passing this first player over to the council. And then our Kalsha for our council just has ignoring the 2 damage. And we have 3 actions, and 4. So Kaisha, that's an I. No, it's an L. Kalsha, I'm sorry, Kalsha will go first. They only need 1 more support to be able to place out their first camp. So their first action will be to clear this pollution, which will give them that support. However, we have adjacent mechs. They're going to try and snipe them. As you play this game, you're going to hate this die. Oh, that's a 2 damager, but it's a snipe attack, so that does nothing to them, plus they ignore that. But because it was snipers attacking, they can only deal that range symbol attack. They can't hit with this anyways. The council still has their map item available to them, so they're going to flip this over, and they can move for free. Normally, that movement, because they did an action in a space adjacent to these snipers, they'd get attacked. But whenever you use those items, you never have to do a damage roll. This means their second regular action, they can move right to here. Now they will have to roll for damage for that movement. We know a factory is going to be placed there. It'd be great to have a camp adjacent to it. We'll roll this up. No damage. That's great. Their third action then will be to place another camp in this location. They are no longer adjacent to snipers. There's no mech in their location, so no damage they have to worry about. Once they place out their camp, they have to place their support marker all the way back down, and now they need to go all the way up to here to be able to place out their next camp. They also have 1 card in hand. They get to have 4 now because of where they are, so they'll draw 3 more beautiful cards into their hand. That's it for the council. We'll flip over their next card. We have factories. If any habitat hex is enclosed, remember that one is not. It's 1 space away from being enclosed. Instead, we'll have factories spread pollution. This means we'll have our first toxic site right here. This will spit out over here, and this one will spit out over here. Not terrible, only 1, and we should be able to take care of that. The order will start their turn by using the map that they have. They're going to flip that over to move 1 and slide over to here. Still does not count as an action. They're already all filled up for support, so their first action will be to place down a second camp, also adjacent to that factory. They'll slide their support marker back down. They also have 1 card in hand, so they'll draw 3 more from their deck. Their second action will be to breach a wall. This is something you haven't seen yet. We are going to place their breach token right here. I'm going to place it on the side of this wall. Now that wall is still considered to be there, and when this hex is fully surrounded, it will still turn into a factory. The nice thing is, this now we can move through that space and jump into that factory to rewild it, take out those mechs. Otherwise, it's fully impenetrable. We can't get in there. So breaching is very important. We only have 4 breach tokens, though, for each of the different factions, so we don't want to waste it. That does give them 1 support, so I'll slide up their marker up 1 on their support. That was their second action. They have 1 more action they can take. And I hate to do it, but I think I'm going to. I'm just going to heal for our third action. We have 2 damage here. We're going to heal that damage up. You can heal at anyone's camp. That was the first thing we forgot in our first play. You can heal at anyone's camp. Okay, we got another engines. Engines advance twice, and then we have to deploy any of the reset engines. We still have not changed the directional marker, so this engine will continue to try and surround this hex. 2 more walls blocking this whole area off. Oh, this poor hex. Now this one is going to move 1 more time, and it actually moves right off onto the machine core. And we have fully covered or surrounded this hex. The next time they try and build one of the factories, they'll build it here. Now we need to redeploy this one. And we start by trying to redeploy it in the spot where we have the arrow of the number 5, so the highest factory. There's already a wall there. So then we look at that direction, and we know that we're going through the 1 gear direction, and we try and place it here. Well, we can't. There's a wall. So when we go over here, we try to place it here. Yes, we can do that. That's terrible, because they're likely going to finish this one off for another factory. So many factories. It's now our turn. I'm planning on taking care of this toxic pollution. I do want to mention, if ever you need to place pollution and there's toxic pollution, it just spreads straight across to the next hex. So it starts filling this one up, and then once this one's filled, it just keeps going. It will never go off the board, but if you're getting to that point, you're probably starting to lose. For our first action, we're going to clear this pollution. That will give us our final support so we can build our first camp. However, we do get snipe attacked. Hoping for no damage here? No, we take 1 damage. This means for our second action, we can place out this camp, reset our support, and roll for some more damage. I'm kind of hoping for a miss here. Yes! That's 2 damage normally for a melee, but there's nothing in our space, so that's a miss. This is our second action, and now we can draw up to 4 cards. We now have Hrakta, breach any wall, Arsenal, gain rockets, that's only me, and then Kraggle, ongoing. You may use rockets to destroy a mech in an adjacent hex. Ooh, that is cool. We also can actually do some team-ups now if we wanted. I do want to quickly call out, you can never breach the walls of the main machine core. We can never get into this space. That's important because it'd be great to breach in here and clear out these mechs first, because once this spawns here, these mechs come with it, and then we have to clear those mechs. So if we cleared them out first, we wouldn't have to do that later. Can't do that. You got to wait until they actually put it into this location and becomes a factory instead of the machine core, and then you can go in there. We have 2 more actions. Let's be risky. We're going to move into here. We do get shot at again. Can we dodge the hit? No, we can't. We take our second damage. Now is where we have to make a tough decision. I can spend my final action to clear this out. That would be great. However, I take 1 auto damage for that, and then I have to roll for damage. And if I roll another hit, then I have to lose one of the defenders randomly from my hand. I have these 4 in my hand. I don't want to lose any of them. But let's say I lose one, which has the mountain as the habitat. We would then place it underneath this mountain token over here. And then if ever another mountain habitat defender is defeated, we lose the game. So do we take the risk or do we not? Well, this is just a fun playthrough, so we're going to take the risk because I want to get rid of that. So that's 1 auto damage for us, 1 support for us, and then we have to roll that damage die. You aren't going to win this game if you don't take some risks. At least that's how it feels when I've been playing it. We'll give that die a roll, and it's a miss. Oh, okay. Well, that's it. I'm definitely not doing another action. If I do any action, even trying to move out of there, I have to roll again. I don't want to have to roll again. Our next machine card is the difficult mechs card. Each engine deploys a hunter. Hunters pursue active player 2, 1 for others, and then players in hexes with a mech take 1 damage. If that hits me, that would be terrible. That would just kill one of our defenders. We have to place a mech here and a mech here, shooting out from those engines. Now, none of them are within range 2, although this one's really close, of me, and none of them are within range 1 of any of our other organizers, so we're actually okay. They'll just stay right where they're at. That ends round 2. Let's start round 3. Looking at the cards I have, relocating to any mountain hex would be great, except for you have to roll again for damage. I'm hoping that someone might have healing cards. I know a character, or I should say a faction, has healing cards. I'm hoping for that. I'm thinking maybe we want to breach a wall, because we could breach that wall before the factory even shows up. And if that factory gets built, especially because we're going to go last likely, we could go in there and start taking out some mechs. However, we have no health. I don't know if I really want to do that yet. You may use rockets and adjacent hexes, relocate. I don't know. I'm just realizing, well, let's do this one. We'll do this one for breaching the wall. We have our 3 cards. We have Parsk, we have Pradalia, and we have Hrakta. This one says take 1 damage. That is for the Order, which actually is okay because Proklazek has Field Hospital. All players remove 1 damage. So that means both the Order and the Council have no damage. We still have 2. But I was hoping for that health. That is where having full information can be helpful. We do, though, get to immediately breach any wall. We have a limited amount of these breaches, but I think we're going to breach this wall, because this one is right adjacent to a camp, so we can heal. If we breach ours, great, but I just think this one's better, because now the 2 walls that are breached are adjacent to where people can heal. We can now move to our counselor's turn. There's a ton of mechs over here. We know eventually a factory is going to be built there, but we don't know when. So what I think we're going to do is clear this pollution to generate 1 support for action 1. Then action 2, we're just going to move over here. And then action 3, we're going to clear this pollution for another support. They just need 2 more support. Actually, I only had 3 actions. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we could do that. 2 support, 1 move. It's not great because that pollution wasn't doing much over here, but trying to get around anywhere else just didn't seem worth it for them. They will flip the last card, which we actually know what it is. It's the final reboot. The first thing it says is toggle the machine direction. So now all machines are going to move towards the double gear side instead of the single. Till the next time we see this. If any habitat hex is enclosed, build a factory. Yep, that's going to happen. And then it says, or, because this is happening, we don't have to spread pollution. What we get to do is remove all of these walls. We then grab the top factory, making sure we do not change its orientation, and place it onto this tile. Now, we've breached these walls, so we can still get into that factory from those 2 locations. The machine's core now has another factory on top, and it just so happens to be facing the same way. That's just random. That doesn't always happen. But you can see here, it's going to start pooping out pollution right onto this factory and other locations as well. Our goal here now is to rewild that as fast as we can, and I have a nice setup to do that. Now that the machine AI deck is depleted, I'll just shuffle these up, and then we'll draw the top card for our next round. Our next faction to go is the Order, and he is ready. He has no damage and 5 actions. This is going to hurt a little bit, but he's going to spend his first action to move into here. That means we now need to roll for sniper damage because we are adjacent. Then, going forward, we'll have to deal with regular melee damage while in that space. This is where we hope for no damage. Oh, that is 2 normally, but that's none for the sniper. Our second action then will take down one of these mechs, generating 1 support. He only needs 2 more to be able to place out his next camp. This one, we do have to worry about melee damage. No, we just take 1. That's okay. We're still doing all right. Something that I almost forgot. 2 mechs should be placed into the machine core. At all times, there should be 2 there. So I've placed those out because those will be sniping us even if we take out this mech, which is what we're going to do with our third action. This mech is gone. We do have to roll for damage, and we take 1. That is our second damage. We do also gain another support for that. 1 more support, and we can build a camp. Action 4 for the order, we are going to rewild this space. What happens with this, we take this and we flip it over, making sure the arrow keeps facing the same way. And we'll place this here, and it is no longer a factory. We've taken that factory down. However, that arrow is still important because when the engines redeploy, they'll still redeploy from here. Also, these are still considered walls, so we can't move out of here in this way. The only 2 ways we can do it are where we've created breaches. That was the last support they needed so that they can place out a camp. However, they do get attacked again. It's no damage because that is a snipe attack, and that's 2 of the melee damage. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. They still have 1 more action. They're going to move. They're going to move out of here and then move to this space. They can do that because of the habitat corridor of their active defender. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. That was 5. We do still have to roll for damage from these snipers because that action initiated adjacent to them. Like I said, you're going to have to get used to rolling this die, and we do take a damage. So that's our 3rd damage. Now, though, we're going to use the Team Up ability. So we're going to take this card, Feel the Burn. Ubi is going to be placed underneath our Pyromancy Predala. So it is going to allow us to take 1 more action, and we're going to build that camp there. This means they get to reset their support and grab their camp. They only have 2 left, plus they have 2 cards in hand. They get to draw up to 5, so they'll grab 3 more cards. They will place down their 3rd camp here, and they can rest there next time, which is good because they're fully damaged. That was a pretty sweet turn, if you ask me. We have Reboot. Oh my gosh, they're going to toggle again. Wow, I was not expecting that. So they're going to toggle going back to the 1 gear very quickly. That's really not good because they'll build 2 more factories. And they can't build a factory, so instead they're going to spit out pollution. This was actually quite fortunate for us because if this factory had been flipped over, it would be spitting out pollution as well. But since we rewilded it, there's only 3 locations that's spitting out pollution. Now this one's going to get 1 of the toxic pollution because that's the 3rd one. 1 here and 1 here, so still not great, but it could have been a lot worse. Unfortunately, we're not in a great space right now. We have 2 damage. We're right next to these snipers. I think the first thing we're going to do is move. We're going to move to this space so we're at our campsite. Because we moved to one of our camps, we actually get to refresh our rocket item. This is great and all, however, we do still need to roll for damage. We'll roll this die up and we do take a damage. That's our 3rd damage, and we're not increasing our support. We only have 2 actions remaining. Our second action will be to heal because we are at a camp. That's great. However, we're still adjacent to those snipers. So that means those snipers still get a shot at us. And we roll and we take 1. So although we healed 3, we still have 1 damage. And that was our second action. Our 3rd and final action, I do think we are going to regroup, moving over to this campsite. We still have to roll for damage, but now we're in an area that's a little bit safer and away from those blasted snipers. Let's give our die a roll. We do take another damage. That's our 2nd damage. I'd love to team up so I could take out that mech and start increasing my support. My support is terrible, but unfortunately, I don't have any of that same habitat, so that's going to end my turn. It's always such a bummer when you have that type of turn. Okay, engines. Oh, they advanced twice. This really hurts because of that toggle. They're going to go 1, 2, and complete this one. 1, 2, and complete this one. That means there's 2 more locations ripe for factories, which means I'm going to have to take those both down in order to win the game. After setting both of those up, we have to place each of these out. One will be placed here and one here. Even though this factory has been rewilded, you always look at the highest factory first and start placing them out. So they're going to start building way over here, right by all of our camps. This will end our third round, and I think with this, I'll call it a day. This should show you how this game played. It's really fun. It's a lot of thinking, a lot of dealing with, oh my gosh, all of these different factories. You have to push yourself in there, deal with all of that damage. I love all the different factions, and they play very differently. They have different benefits and different detriments. Not having the healers out here makes it a little bit harder when you're trying to go into those factories. You could get killed. And sometimes your games can end very quickly. My wife and I had a very quick game. It was only 20 minutes long because we ended up losing 2 defenders of the same type. Such a bummer. But the ones that we did win, oh, they were so fun. Well, only one of them. Hopefully this helps you decide if this game is for you, and as always, thank you so much for watching and subscribing. This is Defenders of the Wild. Bernd and I appreciate all of our subscribers and our patrons. It's because of you that we continue to do what we're doing. If you're excited to see what Bernd and I have coming to the channel, then I need you to meet me at the table. Goodbye, everyone.